Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about Greenland, and the topics I'm going to discuss is why Trump wants Greenland now, despite it's being Denmark's territory. So why is Trump in a hurry to get Greenland? I'm going to be talking about whether this is going to be the end of NATO if Trump does get Greenland. I'm going to be talking about what the Europeans can do, whether they can do anything about it. And I'm also going to be talking about how Trump will eventually get Greenland. So without further ado, let's start with the show. And don't forget to like and share, guys. It really helps a lot. And go in the comment section. And if you can, do a favor and watch the video to the end. That helps the algorithm the most. Anyway, so why does suddenly Greenland come on Trump's radar? Mainly because of the resources, especially the fact that China has control over 90% of the world's rare earths. Trump thinks that there's a lot of resources, especially rare earths, in Greenland. And if you know anything about the rare earth industry, these rare earths are not really rare. They're found in every single part of the world. What makes it rare is the fact that China can, they've got all the refineries to refine these rare earth minerals, which they mine, by the way. And China is one of the few countries that actually refine the rare earth materials. So the world's rare earths goes to China and they refine it. And this is at a huge cost to China because it's an extremely pollutant, it causes a lot of pollution, let's just put it that way. And Americans can't do it because of the fact that it causes so much pollution. Their environmentalists will say no to it straight away. So they won't be able to get any licenses to refine all of these rare earths. So that's the problem the Western countries have, because the Western countries have been outsourcing their pollution to China and other parts of the world, and especially to Ukraine as well. This is why the Western countries are fuming over Ukraine, because they've been exporting a lot of their, pollution and the stuff that they cannot get away with in their countries, and they send it off to other countries, especially like Ukraine, China, and many other countries around the world. While they are basically clean and green. They talk about green energies and stuff, but they don't want to do any of the heavy pollutant stuff. So why is that a problem? So the problem is, if Trump gets Greenland, Greenland has already got a lot of rare earth minerals. But what Trump's plan is also to refine these rare earths in Greenland itself. So if they refine these, you know, products in Greenland, it basically saves him the hassle of doing it in the mainland. So this is why he's very, very desperate to do it in Greenland. And one of the main advantages of Greenland is most of the territory is uninhabitable. It's covered in ice. There's nobody there, so they can basically pollute as much as they can in Greenland, and nobody will complain. Well, that's the idea that Trump has, and I think Trump wants to move all the pollutant, factories, everything that causes pollution in mainland America. I think he's going to move it all to Greenland, and I think that's the plan. And move all the heavy pollutant stuff, and I think then he wants to kind of compete with China, producing rare earths and other heavy pollutant materials and refineries in Greenland. I think that's his plan. So basically, he wants to destroy Greenland with pollution, and yeah, the only reason Denmark has not done that is because there's been environmentalists stopping Greenland. I mean, stopping Denmark to do it. Denmark wanted to mine Greenland for all its resources, oil, gas, and stuff, but the environmentalists have not allowed Denmark to do that. They wasn't allowed to get the licenses. And a lot of these environmentalists are actually paid by United States and other NGOs. So they stopped a lot of the licensing in Greenland. So Greenland, it's a beautiful country. It's got lots of lush mountains and scenery. So they didn't want to destroy that. Problem is, if America takes Greenland, they're going to kick out all of these environmentalists. They're going to kick out all these NGOs, and America will do what they want. I mean, Trump is going to basically do whatever he wants in Greenland. He's going to kick out anybody that makes any noise. He's going to kick them out. And this is how it works. If land belongs to another country, they send all the environmentalists to stop, mining or stop doing anything that causes pollution. But when America does it, all of these suddenly all these environmentalists just disappear, and they get it, and they basically get things done. And I think that's what Trump's plan is, to basically destroy Greenland. It's just have an island just full of pollutants. So that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to basically compete with China with the rare earths and other heavy pollutants and use Greenland for it. It's going to move all the heavy industry from the United States mainland and into Greenland. And also he wants to militarize Greenland as well. He's going to put lots of American bases all around Greenland because the Arctic is, the ice is melting in the Arctic. So there's going to be, free routes through the Arctic, and America wants to be part of that. So that's why they want to, as part of the global warming and stuff, Greenland in the future is going to be very lush and green, and while the rest of the world burns because of the global warming. And I think he wants to be a part of that. He wants to be part of the Arctic, where if the snow caps melt, then there's going to be free sea routes going all the way via Russia into, from the Arctic to the Pacific. So there's going to be a direct route to do that. And I think America wants that. They also believe Greenland is part of their hemisphere as well. They want to control uh, all islands surrounding America, so any missiles that come from any directions can be stopped. And I think that's what they're worried about. Because of the technology of hypersonic missiles, they can come from any direction. So America wants to put, as many American bases and radar installations in Greenland as possible to kind of stop or have early advance warnings from Russia, and to stop these missiles. So there's a number of reasons why Trump wants to do that. So let's talk about NATO. It's funny how NATO is very quiet. If you look at any, that guy Rutte, the Dutch guy, he hasn't said anything about Trump taking Greenland. While he's very vocal about Ukraine, he's very vocal about pro-American policies, and every time Ukraine comes up, and he's very, very, he's an ultimate puppet. But when Trump talks about Greenland, suddenly he's quiet. He doesn't say anything. So the Denmark Prime Minister recently said that if Trump takes Greenland, then this is going to be the end of NATO, because Greenland is part of NATO, you see. So you have a NATO member invading another NATO member. So will they talk about Article 5? No, because Article 5 is just a sham, guys. Article 5 doesn't exist. America controls NATO, and what America says goes. And if America wants to take over another European country or another state, what they say goes, because NATO is controlled by America, and all the weapons, all the F-35s, all the American weapons, they all come from America. To be part of NATO, you have to have NATO standard weapons. So every country in NATO has to have American weapons, including F-35s, including anti-aircraft, and any missiles, any weapons whatsoever has to be NATO standard. So all of the equipment comes from America, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have kill switches as well to stop these weapons to be fired against America. So if you have France or Britain with all these F-35s, I'm sure America has kill switches in them, so they cannot be used against America. I'm sure America will do that. I mean, and China knows that because this is one of the reasons why China banned NVIDIA chips because they have some backdoor switches which can shut down the semiconductors remotely. So I think, and also they have a lot of tracking devices and things like that. So you cannot trust these American weapons, and you cannot trust America. And this is why NATO will probably cease to exist. I think if America does take Greenland, you know, I am not sure if the Europeans have got the balls to leave NATO. I'm not sure what they're going to do because most of the European nations are puppets. They're slaves basically, slaves to the slave masters, and and I just don't think any of the European leaders have any balls to do anything. I don't think they can do anything. I think they'll just quietly cry in the corner. And people like Ursula will never say anything bad about United States. She's happy to go to China and talk about human rights and Chinese bad and China overcapacity, blah blah blah. But when she gets in front of Trump, I don't know if you guys have seen the clip. When she goes to Trump to talk about trade, she's like a little timid old woman. She's like sitting in the corner chair, doesn't say anything bad to Trump. She's like, yes sir, daddy Trump. Yes, you can do whatever you want. I won't say anything bad. It's a complete change. When she's in front of China, she's an ultimate hawk. But with America, she's the ultimate puppet. And I think she's an American agent, guys, sent to Europe to destroy Europe. And I remember when she was with Biden, even, she was having these press conferences. She was turning around and saying, we want to buy gas from our friends. America are our friends. Russian rubles is going to turn into rubble. Russia is desperate. They're using semiconductors from fridges. They're going to run out of missiles in 2 weeks. Russia's going to lose. Ukraine is winning. All of these lies that she was, standing up and saying. All of these lies, and she's still, leading the European Union. It's absolute joke, guys. Absolute joke. How can she still be in charge after everything that she said and done? They're all a bunch of puppets. The Europeans, all of them. And if the Danes lose Greenland, I would I would not be. I would be celebrating, guys. I would not be sad because they deserve it. This might be a controversial take, but they actually deserve it because the Danes have been instrumental in America's colonial project. For example, they have been supporting Kosovo. For example, Kosovo they supported, which used to be part of Serbia. So they supported the separation of Kosovo from Serbia. They supported Israel in its genocide. They supported every single American or European colonial project throughout history. They supported the Iraq War. They supported the Afghanistan War. They supported, America thick and thin. They have been even anti-Chinese. They have been placing sanctions on China. They have been saying bad things about China. They have been ultimate puppets of America. And now America, its master, is looking for payment. They want payment from these slaves, and Danes are going to get the ultimate. They're going to get the ultimate lesson. They have been shaking hands with the devil for far too long, and now it's time to pay the price. So they deserve it, guys. They absolutely deserve it. And if I was a Danish leader, I would have mined Greenland to death. I would have mined all the resources. Europe does not have resources, guys. Europe does not have any rare earths or minerals or anything like that. So Greenland was the ultimate place for resources for not just Danes, but for Europe. They should have mined Greenland to death. And if they did, Europe would have been in a much better state, and Denmark would have been a superpower. Right? If they mined Greenland, extracted lots of rare earths, extracted all the gold, all the oil, all the gas, The Danes would have been living life, as superpowers because they would have made so much money. They didn't. They left it all for America to exploit. I mean, how funny is that? All the environmentalists stopped Danes from doing anything in Greenland, and now they're left beautiful Greenland for America to come in and take all the resources for themselves. Absolute travesty. Absolute travesty. I don't know why they didn't mine Greenland to death and become, ultimate rich. It is so silly, guys. So silly. But yeah, they do deserve it because of Dane's attitude and throughout history. I don't think they expected America to ever do something like this. But at the end of the day, everybody knows America doesn't have any friends. They only have interests. So if you're going to sleep with the devil, expect some payments, down the road. Anyway, I think if America takes Greenland, it is the end of NATO because I think Trump doesn't really care much about NATO. I think he will leave. Um, I think he will leave voluntarily. I don't think he cares about NATO. He will stop supporting NATO, and the Europeans probably won't do anything. But if the Europeans had any kind of spine, they would have basically done a number of things which can hurt America economically. For example, they can dump all the treasury bonds. They can stop all the investments in America. So bring all the investments, send it to China, for example. They can stop buying, American weapons. They can stop trading with America. They can put ultimate, the really heavy sanctions on America. They can start making friends with Russia again. They can start making friends with China again and start trading with China and Russia, start getting cheap Russian gas again. There's a lot of things that Europeans can do. And, um, and I think that America played the ultimate trick on Europe. They started this war with Russia and Ukraine. It was America that started it, guys. It wasn't Europe. It was Victoria. It was Victoria Nuland going into Ukraine, starting basically causing the Maidan, starting a regime change there, forced regime change, put Zelensky in power. And all of that has led to the Ukraine war that we have today. And all this talk about, Ukraine joining NATO, having American weapons and NATO bases in Ukraine and extracting Ukraine's resources. It's all America. It's not Europe. This is all America's doing. And now, after they started the war, they blow up Nord Stream. They block all access to cheap Russian gas, and they have destroyed Europe financially. And now Trump is laughing because Europe is weak. Europe is weak. They've sent all their money and weapons to Ukraine. They've got nothing left. And Trump smells blood. Like vultures smell blood, and they come after you when they see. When you're in the desert and you're about to die, that's when the vultures, circle around, and when the time comes, they just dive in and start eating you. And this is what Trump has done. He smells blood. But the Europeans put themselves in this position, and the Americans have played them very well. You gotta look at the IQ of these European leaders. Zero IQ, guys. No forward thinking whatsoever. They have been absolutely played. Like DJ Khaled would say, you've played yourself. So France is talking about protecting Greenland, but the truth is, even France, Britain, all the Europeans, they can't stop Russia, guys. They can't even stop Russia together. How are they going to stop United States? You tell me. It's impossible. They're not going to do anything. It's just talk. I mean, they can, if they were clever, financially they can destroy United States. They can dump, like I said, they can dump all the treasury bonds, stop investments in America, stop using the dollar. They can start trading with with China and Russia and the rest of the world, and stop trading with the United States. There's a lot of stuff they can do financially, but whilst von der Leyen is in power, that's not going to happen. They need to kick her out. If Europe wants its own voice, they need to kick her out. And even the European Union, I don't think it's going to last. I think if America takes Greenland, NATO will collapse, but so will the European Union. I think the European Union will collapse, and I think Europe will go back to how it was before, individual countries, where they trade with other parts of the world individually. They don't let von der Leyen do all the negotiations for them. So I think that's probably going to happen soon. But yeah, Europe really can't do much. But do you think it's going to be really funny if suddenly America takes Greenland and the Europeans start having a war with America? I mean, imagine the headlines and how funny that would be. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen, but you never know. You never know with Trump. You never know with these ridiculous European leaders. You don't know what's going to happen. Things can change very rapidly. So how can Trump take Greenland? I don't think he needs to do much. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how America is pushing Greenland to be independent. I think this is how they're going to do it. They're going to push Greenland to be independent. They're going to give Greenlanders a lot of money. They're going to offer them. There's talk about each Greenlander being offered $1 million, and so they'll probably be buying a lot of votes, to be honest, and they'll probably do lots of shady stuff behind the scenes. And militarily, they can take Greenland easily. Danes won't really put up a fight. It's not even going to take a day. It's going to take maybe less than an hour for America. America already has bases in Greenland, so militarily they can easily take it. But I think they're going to go along the route of negotiations with the Greenlanders. They're going to give them a lot of money, and they're going to vote, and they're going to vote to be part of United States. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I think there's going to be a lot of vote rigging as well. There's going to be lots of fake votes, and suddenly the vote results would come out and say, "Yeah, Greenlanders have voted to join America." I think that's something like that is going to happen. And yeah, the Danes are not going to do anything about it. The Europeans are not going to do anything about it. If I was the Danes, what should they do? How can the Danes stop this? Well, their best approach, best way they can stop this from happening is they need to beg, and I'm talking about beg, Russia for help and China as well. And they need to, leave NATO first of all, join hands with Russia and China, and whatever they need to do, they need to basically beg for forgiveness to Russia and to China because they've been doing some naughty stuff to China as well. And they need to basically promise China and Russia lots of mineral rights and mining rights and stuff like that, do lots of joint operations in Greenland with Russia, with Chinese firms, with Russian firms. I know they're doing that right now with a few Chinese and Russian firms, but it's only very small amounts. It's not nothing major. And I think instead of giving it for free to United States, I think you know the Danes need to make a deal with China and Russia, saying, okay, look, let's jointly extract minerals from Greenland. Um, and in return, you guys offer me protection. You can have basically Russian bases there and Chinese bases, and you basically protect us from America. I think that's the only way this is going to work, guys. Only way. But I don't know if the Danes are clever enough to do that. If they don't do that, then you can say goodbye to Greenland because nobody's coming to save you. No NATO, no Europeans are going to save you. The only people that can save you is the Russians and the Chinese, and the Russians and Chinese will work together. And And the Russians will probably put nukes in Greenland. So if the Americans try anything, there's nukes waiting for them, basically. So they won't try anything. If the Russians are there and if the Chinese are there, the Americans are not going to try anything. And I think that's the only way to stop this from happening. But I don't know if the Danes will do that. If then I don't know if they're open-minded enough to do that. But that is the only way to stop them. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.